Welcome to Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Stories and advice about moving forward, punching through that glass ceiling, pushing harder, and blazing trails from women we really admire.
Hi, I'm Liz Brohan.
And I'm Mary Olivieri, and welcome to yet another episode of Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Absolutely. So, Mary, let's start today by having a little fun with Venn diagrams.
So, okay, I would say that you and I have very different definitions of fun, but I'm interested to hear more. So let's have fun with Venn diagrams.
Okay, so the reason I think we can have fun with Venn diagrams is the overlapping of a Venn diagram actually does two things for us today. It talks about two kick-ass women from kind of very different, backgrounds and universes that have something big in common. Mm-hmm. And then also it sets up the very diverse background of our guest today. Okay. So are you ready?
I got circle, like the Olympic symbol in my head right now.
Okay.
All right.
That's a good start.
There we go.
Okay. So kick-ass women with overlapping.
Yeah, I got you. It's there.
Okay. So think about Jane Addams.
Okay.
She's the founder of Hull House from Chicagoland, right? And the first Black Nobel Peace Prize winner from Africa, Wangari Maathai.
Right.
And like I said, she was first Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Okay, so I'm still Venn diagramming.
Yeah, so Venn diagram.
Well, so I'm seeing social justice,
For
right?
Sure.
Environmental justice. There's an overlay there as well, right? And they both empowered underprivileged women and children. So we've got that going for us. Talk about kick-ass women.
Wow, and talk about a smarty pants. That was good. Good for you. So, all of those things describe our special guest today. With us today is Brooke Wiseman. Brooke is a nonprofit leader. She's a consultant. She's an advisor. She's a former CEO of so many different, very large organizations that you're all going to know and love. Probably you're most famous for being the CEO emeritus, right?
Yes.
Of
Blessings in a backpack.
Thank you. Blessings in a backpack. And also, you were CEO of the Girl Scouts organization.
On my honor.
All of us, right?
Here in Chicago. But that's not all. You've taught at rather prestigious universities here in Northwestern and also Notre Dame, right? Mm-hmm. And you taught nonprofit and entrepreneurial lessons, right?
Right.
So actually, she's done so much. I'm hoping that she'll tell us more as we get into today's conversation. And one of the things that's near and dear to Brooke's heart is this concept of volunteering.
Right.
It's, as someone who's been in nonprofit most of her life and career, that's at the heart of a lot of magic. Correct?
That's right. It's been a lot of magic, and I have been very lucky throughout my career to be able to work with literally thousands of volunteers in a variety of different areas. And then, of course, I volunteer myself, too. And so I think that it's life-changing for a lot of people. I've watched them move from one place to another and to really, really have a great experience being a volunteer.
I mean, those are incredible credentials, seriously. And so we're so happy to have you with us. We had talked about like social activism and conservation as well as another topic. And so I'm just curious, right? Because when I was a kid, I was what they would say I was a tomboy, right? I was really into the outdoors. Is there an aspect of you, because I mean, Girl Scouts is very much about, the camping part of it was a blast, right?
Right.
So is there anything about you from when you started early on as a child that you think led you to have such an impact on volunteerism in this country?
Yes, I will say it kind of started with the conservation movement at the time when I was in college at Ball State University. put a plug in there for that. And I was a junior in college at that point, active in student government. And that was the year that they wanted to start talking, on campus about conservation, the environment, the effects of the environment. And we were just really starting to think about it at that point. And I was drawn to that because, first of all, of my Girl Scout roots and the fact that we were we'd be outside, we'd be hiking, we'd be canoeing, going down a river, things like that. And all of a sudden you'd take a turn and there'd be just this trash. And it was just something that really bothered me from the very beginning. Like, how did this happen? And so when there was an opportunity to take over what we called at that point the environmental teach-in, the first Earth Day, the name Earth Day came a year later. But at that point, we did the first environmental teach-in. And I was also drawn to that because my father was a conservationist. He was active in the Isaac Walton League, and he worked on behalf of issues like that, including he was one of the people who worked on starting the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore, which is now, designated as that, but they were starting to work on that. And I was happy that day for the actual environmental teach-in day. My dad was there and was able to be one of the speakers. And that was kind of exciting, I think, for both of us at that point. So we called it a teach-in because that's what we did. We taught people how to do things then. And that was how we got started with it. And that was 55 years ago.
Wow.
And what I remember most was we had hundreds of students, and we worked closely with the school to put this on. And the one thing I remember is we built a mountain of plastic because at that point we were still helping people kind of realize that plastic, was just building up into the environment. I remember we had this huge mountain. I'm not sure how we actually took it down at the end, but it was a very great weekend with a lot of speakers. And I look back now and I think at 20, that was a lot for me to take over and to volunteer and have hundreds of other volunteers working with me.
It sounds like you were kind of ahead of your time. I mean,
right.
Even back in the early 70s, people kind of thought plastics was going to be the answer to all of our problems, not create all of our problems.
Not show up in our bloodstream.
Yes, no, it's like years ago. It's even like more of that. But yeah, it was exciting. We had many speakers. So I think that was my start. Not only, I think, maybe in taking some sort of a leadership role in society for that, in my society on campus at that point, but to really then think of that as something that I could do moving forward. I didn't really go into the conservation work so much as how it would overlay with what I actually ended up doing was becoming a Girl Scout, as we called it then, a professional Girl Scout. And then they would, kids would tease me and I'd go, yeah, that's what I'm doing though. I'm going to be a Girl Scout. And so that is how I ended up getting there. But I think my one learning about that first experience, there's a quote that I think just really fits for that and something that I tried to carry forward and to share with people is, the activist isn't the person that says, oh my gosh, the river is dirty. The activist is the person that goes out and cleans the river. Mm-hmm. So you find two types of people in society. One is the one that's going to just say, well, the river's dirty. We should, I don't know what we should do, or I'm not going to do it. Somebody else ought to do it. Mm-hmm. And the other person is the person who goes out. And I was watching TV this morning, and there's a group of people out cleaning a river here in Chicago. And I thought, this is so pertinent. But there's the difference. You're either that or that.
Well, there's no doubt about it that we need more volunteers, not just the activists, as you've just pointed out.
Yeah.
But I never thought of volunteering as having a kind of a magic component in my life until you and I started talking about it.
That's right.
So let's just talk a little bit about what you find so compelling about volunteering and that you want to encourage our listeners and, almost everybody else out there to do it.
Yeah, I'll just tell a quick story. There were this is an old story. There were two travelers on the road. And they were walking together, and they saw a man that was in trouble and needed help on the side of the road. And one traveler, one of them, the first one said, "Well, what'll happen to me if I go and help? I could get hurt. I could get involved." And the second traveler said, what will happen to him if we don't stop?
Right.
And I would say that the travelers who go hurry on their way and don't stop, they're not concerned with helping others. But the one who stops and helps, that's the person who really is going to make a difference. And that's what I always think of that. That's what volunteers are. They're those people that see the difference and stop to help. And as I think a lot about, volunteering and how do you choose what you want to do? What's going to make a difference in your life? How are you going to have a passion about it and the magic that comes with it? And there was a book written a few years back called Forces for Good, and it was about nonprofits and what made for a successful nonprofit. And one of the most important pieces was that successful nonprofits have people who we would call evangelists. And it's not a religious term. It's those people who are so connected to that cause that they'll just go on and on about it and just convince everybody they should come in and they should help too. And they're going to get the magic of being part of it. And so I think people should think for, back in any of your volunteer opportunities, when's the last time you came home from one of those and you just kept talking? And then I had this kid and they learned how to do this and I was doing this and we broke through on that one issue, or I tutored, now the child can catch up, or whatever it is. And you come home and you just go, and that was so cool. And your spouse, your partner, whoever it is, your friend that you're talking to goes, yeah, I get it. You had a good day.
Do you think that actually, so I love the idea of social evangelism. And do you think that when you're talking about the two types of people, the person who's going to walk by and not want to bother because how is it going to affect them? Do you think that evangelism can convert people like that?
I actually do. I think people get so kind of concentrating in their life and all the things they have to do, or work, some of us are very driven and we so see work, and we're going to do that. But I think that once they can see the difference and they can think, well, maybe I do need to have space in my life for that. I think it's a good opportunity, because when you do volunteer and you do go out and have those experiences, it does bring joy to you and passion. And if you go out and do it, and you don't feel that passion, that's not the right thing for you. You need to go on to the next thing until you're the one that kind of comes back and said, wow, that was just great. And I really did feel that. It made a difference for me. I felt like I was, I was making a difference in society. And it makes a difference in you because you see the things and you feel that heart.
And would you agree that the passion can come from kind of two different elements? One is the organization or the cause that you're definitely volunteering to work towards.
Yes.
And the people that you end up getting to meet and form friendships with, or are in awe of because they're smart or have a really interesting skill set.
Yes. Yeah. That's so true, because you might find your new mentor in that. You might find somebody that's connected in another career opportunity that you might want to go to. And, there are days you think, I can't get any more friends. I'm too busy. But you really do need to get new friends. And there's this one part that I was really thinking about is that, there's this opportunity. It's called an invisible thread. And it's an old Chinese proverb, and it talks about that you have an opportunity to meet someone every day, and you go out, and then whether it's by where you are, your relationship, or where you showed up in the same place, you meet somebody, and you feel this spark between you, and that's that invisible thread, which ties you to other people, sometimes for the rest of your life, or you just look at them and you think, I want to know you. You're the person that I want to know, and so you gather people like that, which then helps you to even widen your scope of what you want to do in your life.
So it's nice. Like with volunteering, we have the emotional driver, right? And but there's also like a professional driver in a way, right? In terms of that networking aspect of it. And so I imagine, I do volunteer for my local animal shelter because I like animals more than people. Just kidding.
People do.
I don't believe that, but okay.
I might be kidding. But yeah, that experience of meeting people who are dynamic and interesting. And I love the idea of the invisible thread. I often think that if people just reminded themselves of that every day when they went out into the world, they would see that connection.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a park across the street from my house, and in the warmer season, there's a lot of unhoused people that show up in that park. And I see that, I look for that laser, that red light, that invisible thread. I am connected to that person as a fellow human being. And that, just thinking about that, and that's a good tip for our listeners, think about how you are connected to everyone around you.
Right.
And then what do you want to do about it?
Yeah.
Right? And maybe nothing. In which case, okay, nice knowing you.
Yeah,
Or maybe you'd like to live an enriched life and help other people or the environment or puppies, you know, and get to meet some interesting people along the way.
Yeah, I think that's true. You know, it's just you have to keep your head up a little bit, look around and see, you know, who is it that I can meet and what is it that interests me, and to follow that kind of passion in your life. And one of the things I found with a lot of people is if they're, you know, not doing those things that are enriching their life, or their work is not enriching their life. This gives an opportunity for you to do that. And it's like, I talk about being in your groove or not in your groove. And I think that sometimes people, if you're going to work or you go to what you signed up to do and you're just like, yeah, I don't want to do that. This isn't right for me. You really need to redo your groove. You got to find where it is, you know, and we've all had that time in our life where we're like, this isn't right for me. I don't feel this. And so I think volunteering is one of those places to help.
Absolutely. I think it helps fight that feeling of isolation that's very prevalent today, you know, among all of us, not just younger people. It's easy to kind of get just trapped behind our technology.
Or to like post about something but not really do it. I used to say to my son, posting something is not necessarily really taking action.
It's not real life.
It's not real life. But Liz, you had brought up earlier, Brooke being the CEO of Blessings in a Backpack.
Blessings in a Backpack.
I'd love to hear a bit more about that, because for some of our younger listeners, there are ways to hone your leadership skills, I would imagine, through volunteering, like, you know, where the stakes aren't necessarily so high. Meaning, if you're in a corporate environment and you're trying to become a leader, it gets tricky. It can be political, bureaucratic, whatever. But in volunteering, it's almost a way to test your own skills in terms of leadership.
It certainly is, and you can get involved at different levels. Some people get involved grassroots, want to go pack the backpack full of food, and that's really all you want to do. Or you want to go and pack it and give it to the child, or you want to go that far. Or you might want to be on a board, or you might want to be on a committee, because there's all levels of volunteering in every not-for-profit. Many non-for-profits are looking for people for their board, which then gives you an opportunity to hone skills that are going to help you in your next job.
Yep.
Or the other part of it is to really go and learn how to raise money. A lot of people
we all need to know how to do that.
And that is not easy. That is a skill set that you learn.
So there's a lot you can do that way.
But I think you're right. I think, you know, starting at a level that you're comfortable with, if it's just a matter of helping children, I mean, that's a noble enough cause.
That's right.
And then you can grow into, you know, other opportunities within an organization too. That's kind of the pathway I've always chosen. Although now I kind of flip that on its ear when I talk to younger women. I'm like, well, serve on a committee.
Yeah.
And maybe don't just serve on it, maybe chair it.
Yeah.
You know?
You'll get an opportunity to develop your leadership skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And use it on your resume.
And quite
honestly,
honestly,
as long as you actually show up.
Right.
You know, don't be that volunteer that says, yeah, I'll come, and then doesn't really do their job.
And people will help. So,
That doesn't sound like fun. Yeah, I have a friend who does something called Loving Lunches. And she just started it. It is now a not-for-profit. But she just started it because she wanted to do something, right? And I was lucky enough to participate in Packing the Sacks a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and it was just something about, I'm a doer. I like working with my hands. And I was raised by parents where productivity is everything. And so I'm the right person for sticking the cheese sticks into the sacks. And I'm saying cheese sticks specifically because I know you have a story around cheese sticks.
Story.
When my staff of blessings, they'll go, tell the cheese stick story, Brooke. Because my first time I actually went out and packed the packs, and the children, it was every child in the school got the backpack for the weekend. We sent food home on the weekends for kids who wouldn't normally have enough food to get through the weekend because they get their food in school a lot. And so kids would come through with their bags, and my job as the CEO was a big responsibility. I had to put the cheese stick in. And so first time I'd been doing it. And halfway through, we ran out of cheese sticks, and so they gave me something else to put in the bag. I'll never forget this little girl going by, because it brought reality to me, to what I was now doing in my position. And she said she didn't get the cheese stick. She went away. She looked through her bag, and she came back, and she stood in front of me, and she said, I didn't get a cheese stick. And I said, oh, I know, we ran out of those, and, you got something else. And she just looked at me and she said, but every weekend I look forward to eating my cheese stick.
Wow.
Aww.
And all I could think, and it was one of those moments in my career, is I thought, I throw cheese sticks in my briefcase every day, carry them downtown, carry them back, haven't even eaten them. And to this child, a critical part of her weekend with food insecurity was she could count on that one cheese stick. And it was probably one of the most sobering moments I had about making a difference. This isn't a joke. It's making a difference, being passionate about helping other people. And that was one of the things that, I think really brought me into even being more serious about my job.
I think that's a wonderful story. I think that sometimes when you're considering volunteering, it's nice to see the immediate impact that you're making, right?
Right.
I think of the conservation, and like I've participated in cleaning up rivers and stuff like that. It's frustrating,
yes,
because the garbage seems to never go away, sadly, right?
Right.
But that's nature,
right.
But when you're talking about a child who can say to you that she looks forward to her cheese stick every day, you are making a difference, and that's something to feel really great about.
And I think it's important that people realize, volunteers realize, that they are critical to the success of nonprofits. Their work that they do is priceless. They bring skills and they bring ability to do certain things, because at the end of it, you're helping someone else, and you're being helped by that process. And I remember once we were in a school and they were making gardens, and some volunteers were planting gardens with the kids so they could learn how to grow things and maybe have, some produce at the end that they would be able to use in their at lunch in the school. And the mayor had come, and we were doing our backpacks, and then they were building the garden. And the mayor said to the children, "Why do you think that that we're here with you? Why do you think everyone's here?" And one little boy raised his hand. One little girl raised her hand, and she said, "Well, because we're a really good school, And then the mayor said, "Well, why else do you think we're here?" And there was a little boy who stood up, and he said, "We're here because we matter and we're important."
Oh.
And I was like, mattering and important is critical for kids.
Yes.
Someone needs to see them. They need to know that they matter. And I thought, that's exactly what it was, that you're important. And that's why all these people have come out. And I think that particularly in organizations that work on behalf of children in a lot of need, that is so important. And we used to have volunteers write little notes in that they could be added into the bag. And it said, "You're doing good. Great job. Keep going." And one girl, this is like a story I hadn't thought about in a while. One girl went back. They didn't have get the notes that week. Somebody hadn't gotten it done. And she came up to the woman running the program and she said, I didn't get a note, but it's like this week. And she said, oh, yeah, I'm sorry they didn't get to do it. And she said, I go home every night, every week when I get it, and I put it up next to my bed. So when I feel like no one cares about me, I can read those notes.
That's lovely.
That is lovely.
I think you're speaking about the power of words here, right? And so we have powers in us, every human being, to make a difference no matter what. With your time, words. My Aunt Marie was an activist. She was a crazy nun activist. And I remember her saying something to me because I'm thinking about your backpacks.
Yeah.
She had said she can't stand it when she hears somebody say, I'm starving.
Yeah.
Because what is the definition of that word, right? And so I think just had the power of our words to say to somebody you can do it, to not say I'm starving, because if you don't really truly know starvation, then don't use that phrase because it's not true.
That's so
right.
true.
There's people out there who actually are.
Yeah.
So I love the little Post-its and I love the power of words and the encouragement. I think that's super important and nice to hear.
The other magic that kind of occurred to me through all of your stories was that you're helping all of us build empathy, right?
Right.
And that's something that is kind of rare, but so needed today that we all need to understand that the plight of somebody else is something that we should be able to at least relate to on some level and then want to help out.
And then want to help.
Yes.
But at least to relate and to know that you see others and that, that they feel that you can see them, I think, and be able to just be human to one another, I think is really important.
Exactly right.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Right.
I know we're getting towards the end of our awesome. I could talk to you about this for hours, Brooke, but I know we're getting towards the end of our conversation with you. Are there any other stories or anything else you'd like to add for our listeners out there to inspire them to get out there and volunteer, or the benefits of doing so? We'd love to hear.
Well, I'll just close with one of my favorite poet is Mary Oliver. And when all else fails, I think about one of her most famous lines is, what will you do with your one wild and precious life? And I ask everybody to think about that. And what are you doing?
Yep.
And you could probably any one of us could do more.
Because as far as we know, right, we only have one.
Right.
So what are you doing with it?
That's
I
right.
love that thought.
Yeah. Wild and precious.
Yep.
Wild and precious
Two
life.
words you wouldn't normally put together.
Yeah,
which is why she's won the Nobel. So
That's right.
Yes,
That's right. That's right. She was great.
Well, we want to thank you so much, Brooke, for sharing your stories and your empowerment and the magic of volunteering.
Yes.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me want to get out and do a little more
That's
of
right.
it.
You can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I agree. Thank you so much. This has been great. I'm also going to volunteer a thank you for our sponsor, the Motion Agency. They are one of the premier marketing communications firm. They specialize in both B2B and B2C and just happen to be female-owned and the largest independent female-owned agency in Chicago. So congratulations to them.
And hey, until next time, you know what? Watch us on YouTube or find us wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts, or visit our website, kick-ass, I said it, -women.com. Please join us again. And again, thank you so much, Brooke.
Happy to be
let's
here.
go volunteers.
Yes. Find the magic.
Find the magic.
Yeah.